This plant chores video is going to show you how to do less but gain way more than what you're putting out. It's packed with tips and tricks that I'm sure you're going to copy. If you're simply looking for some motivation to get on your way with your own plant chores, then you've clicked on the right video. Let's start off with some general pest prevention. I love having a pest prevention routine, which is a spraying of all my plants using a neem oil solution, which is 1 tablespoon of neem oil and 1 tablespoon of dish soap mixed in a gallon of water. So I make that mixture, and once a week I spray all my plants front and back with this mixture so that I have a little pest prevention program, if you want to say, going just to help me manage all my plants so that I don't really have outbreaks to deal with frequently. Here's a quick tip to prevent a bunch of suds just overflowing from the onset of filling the gallon. I just add the dish soap when the gallon is about 3/4 the way filled, so that when I continue to add water, the mixture can be, properly mixed in there, but not from the start to avoid all of those suds from just overflowing everywhere. Why I use dish soap with my neem oil is because research has shown that it helps for a more even distribution of neem oil in the water when you're making that mixture, because oil tends to float on water. So the dish soap helps to, I guess, emulsify the oil a little more so that there's more of an even distribution in the water, so that once you're spraying, there isn't like a region of high concentration spraying out and then a region of low concentration coming through. There's an even, spray and distribution of neem oil throughout the process. Once it's filled, I do go back in and give it a good stir before spraying. In most recent times, I find that no one is really talking about using neem oil as a preventative anymore. I find a lot of plant collectors are just focusing on treatment or dealing with outbreaks as opposed to prevention. To me, and I've been using this method for over 7 years, this has really been like saving me so much time, because my collection is, I've lost count, it's definitely over 500 plants now. And if I had to be, dealing with pests on multiple plants at the same time, to me, I'm just losing the essence of, the entire hobby, which is to be able to enjoy the foliage and enjoy my plants in, just a relaxing, appreciative way, as opposed to just having to treat pests after pests. And a lot of my plants are outdoors now, so they are prone to pests. So my method of dealing with pests is to actually have a prevention plan, and this is where I find neem oil works every time. For best results, applications should be consistent and long term. I'll put a link in the description for all the benefits of using neem oil, but it breaks the life cycle of the pests. Let me show you what happens when you're not consistent with neem. And I am guilty of not being consistent at times, especially now that I've moved into my new home and I'm still trying to figure everything out. It's exhausting to manage, to say the least. So, some things had to give on my pest treatment, or my neem prevention plan has really suffered, so that this syngonium is covered in scales now. Imagine if this just, completely was out of control and I had to be dealing with multiple plants that are just covered in scale. I do not want to be in this position. Hence the reason I'm really trying to put my best foot forward in reestablishing my neem oil treatment so that I don't have to deal with multiple plants. My plants are huge as well. To deal with scale is quite annoying. But in this case, I have no choice because I was not consistent. I guarantee you, once you're consistent with neem, you wouldn't have these problems. But anyway, let me show you how I treat a pest outbreak. And this is a scale outbreak or scales outbreak. So let me show you what I do. I use a 70% alcohol, and I spray the entire plant from the roots to the foliage with this. And let me tell you, this has saved me time and time again because it completely desiccates the scale so that is eradicated upon contact. And then you just could either scrape this off, brush this off, or just, leave other pests to come and feed off of them, or eventually they fall off. But the plant does not suffer, it does not die. This has saved me, like I said, many times before. But what I'm hoping is to never have to deal with this again, hence the reason I'm getting back into my neem oil prevention. Once I've thoroughly sprayed it, I set it aside to completely dry. Now, this syngonium also needs to be repotted. As you can see, the stems are really just coming out today. All the areas are all over. So I want to get it into a deeper pot so that, even though it's battling scale, it will be, completely covered in a nice fresh batch of soil to help it continue to battle whatever remaining scales I couldn't get to. I'm going to give you a quick tip here again for dealing with scales as well as mealybugs, and that is using systemic granules. For a pest outbreak like this one, besides spraying it with alcohol, I sprinkle systemic granules into the soil. And how this works is, once it gets into the soil with every watering, the pesticide actually infuses with the plant tissue to continue to fight scale over time. This type of pest treatment for scales specifically has served me time and time again, so that I know I don't have to worry about this plant, succumbing to it. Also, I felt like I should have potted this a little deeper, but this was the only size pot I had available at the time. For the plants living inside my home, I do not spray. I spray no pesticide inside my home, so I actually have to suffer through individually treating these for now until they all get into the greenhouse, and then I can spray everything. But for now, because I'm storing these here, I am going to put the effort in to conduct my regular pest treatments, and that is using this concoction of alcohol, dish soap, and water, and I wipe each leaf, the front and back, as frequently as I can to prevent pests. The recipe for this solution is on my Instagram, so you can check out my highlights over there. But it's one third that water bottle. Like, I didn't really measure it. It's like a Dasani water bottle that I'm using, and I fill that one third up with rubbing alcohol. It could be 90% or 70%. It really doesn't matter. And then I fill the rest up with water, but I do add also one tablespoon of dish soap, and that's pretty much the whole concoction. And I just use a regular kitchen sponge, and I wipe these leaves front and back. So my alocasias are predominantly here, so I'm always wary of spider mites. Some of them are actually less prone to spider mites. I have an alocasia video coming out, a very super detailed one that I'm working on for y'all. But I've realized that not all alocasias are spider mite prone. But this concoction works really, really well for spider mites. But if I do have an outbreak, having cleaned them with this, I go in with Endol as well. So my DIY pest solution for, I shouldn't say specifically for spider mites, is for anything, because alcohol pretty much unalives any pests from desiccating them. So it's really a strong but simple and cost effective. It's so cheap to make, and it just works every time. It is time consuming to apply. That's the only downfall. Like, when you can't just spray everything and just be one and done, it really is time consuming. So, make sure you get in the mood to go through this. It is therapeutic for me. So, this is why I guess I've been keeping up with it after all these years. But, you can just put on some music, put on a video, and time flies, honestly. But for the effectiveness, I will continue to do this in the future. A great point to note about this alcohol solution that I'm using is that I have used this on my entire collection, and I primarily collect aroids. Up on the screen right now is my Hoya Sarawak, and I haven't had any leaves burn or any adverse reactions happen to any of the plants. Granted, it is a dilution, so it is, 66% water. All in all, to say, for a DIY solution, it's been pretty safe on all of my plants. Moving on to other plant chores, which is pruning and getting rid of any, dead foliage, making sure that the space is clean so that other pests aren't hiding in there. It also just, keeps the display looking at its best. I know there's a lot of debate about, pruning plants and getting rid of leaves that are probably now turning yellow. But my take is, once I find there's like 70 to 80% yellowing, I'm going to get rid of the leaf, because I feel like the plant is just wasting energy trying to keep it alive. So I feel like the nutrition that is being debated online about, nutrition being available to the plant still during that state, I think, waiting until 70%, 80% yellowing occurs first and then cutting it off, to me is fine, but I don't really want the plant to be wasting time trying to keep that alive, as opposed to working on new foliage, on new roots, or even clones. So let's move on to that next, actually. Some anthuriums are famous for cloning itself, like my Anthurium no ID. But before I get to that, if you missed my plant rescue video, I'm going to link it in the description for y'all. But this is an example of a butcut coming back to life with two new nodes activating. So don't be afraid to, chop and prop. But yeah, these are actually two clones of my Anthurium no ID. We believe, me and a couple plant collectors in discussion think that it's an Anthurium pterodactyl hybrid, but it has cloned itself multiple times, and I'm gonna take these out and get them into a new pot. Before extraction, I removed the top layer of soil just to understand, the roots that I'm dealing with. Once I have found, like, a good enough established root, I just yank or pull from the bottom of that as gently as I can to remove the clone. And to me, one root gives me enough chance to keep it alive even after extraction. So I just gently pull, as you see there, until I feel like I could just wiggle the rest of the plant out. It looked forceful there, but it wasn't as forceful, and I was actually able to get two roots. So that's really good for me. I think this one will definitely survive. Let's see what happens with the second one. This one is a little smaller. You can see if you look closely that there is a little root there. I'm going to try and wiggle that out as best as I can, and then again try to pull from below that area, so at least I've secured that top root. So I'm just gently maneuvering my way around. I've gotten a really nice big root on this one, and I'm just gonna extract this one. I know this is painful for some of y'all to watch, but don't worry, I'm gonna give it a nice, cozy new pot for itself, and hopefully help it to grow without having to compete with the mother plant for nutrition. So this is just my basic Anthurium mix. It consists of my premium aroid mix that I amend 50% of the way with perlite, and then I add some fine grain cocoa chips and some tree fern fiber. If you watched my previous plant shows videos, you would know that I have never amended my aroid mix before, but at my new home, because we live very close to the forest, it is super humid, so I've had to amend the mix for best performance. Just to be clear, amended with perlite only as my basic aroid mix, but for anthuriums, I do add those extra amendments that you saw before. So anyway, these are the size pots that I'm going to use for these. I'm planting this one a little deeper as it has two rooting points, and the smaller one I'm putting in the shallower pot, just as you see there. I'm going to fill it all the way up with soil in this case because these are really fast growers. They size up really fast as well. And if you follow me over on Instagram, you might be lucky to find them for sale there if they don't sell before. And you've seen me pot up this syngonium already, so I'm just going to move past this to the watering phase. Actually, before we move on to the watering phase, let me pot up my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that has been propagating for the longest while. These are also some philodendron white princess props that I want to check the roots on and see if I can pot these up as well, and then we'll water everything in the end. So these roots look super. They are probably long overdue for potting up. I'm going to put it in this one so that I get enough height and depth to add a pole. This is where we're going to add a pole in seconds, as well as you're going to see me extend it in seconds. I love these pre-made poles. I get them on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description for you all. So it's a two-part pole, the body and the stake. I'm just inserting the stake into the hole at the base, and then you just slip this into your pot when you're done. And let me set it up and I'll show you what I mean. So I put the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma in that clear pot so I could also monitor roots, and backfilled it with my standard premium aroid mix that I amended with perlite. That's all that's in that mix, and I'm just inserting the pole like this. Why I decided to use this pole is because my variegated Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, and I'll show you coming up shortly, loves this pole. So I figured my green version will like it as well. So I just secured it there using some Velcro tape, making sure the nodes touch the pole itself. And let me show you a quick tip or a quick hack to encourage rooting along the pole. So I just grab some sphagnum moss that I get from Home and Garden Creations in El Seguro. So the hack is I moisten some moss. Here I am squeezing out the excess water and I place it between the stem and the pole itself. So this creates a nice humidity zone for the aerials to be stimulated and grow into, and then eventually down into the soil. Let me show you with my variegated Rhaphidophora how this mature system operates. So the same poles I use for this plant and the aerials grow out fine without the moss. That's just a propagation strategy that I use for new plants by adding the moss. But for mature plants, I just direct the roots all the way down into the pot, and this pole serves well for that. And this is no joke or no lie or no illusion and no AI, but this is a demonstration of how I extend this pole in seconds. So this is the two-part system. This is me screwing it into the base, and that's all the prep required for this pole. And this is how you extend it. You just slip it right into the one before, and that's it. That's the entire process, all done in seconds. So I was not joking when I said we're going to extend poles in seconds. And my Rhaphidophora, the variegated one, and you know, variegates can be quite difficult to grow. It loves it. And it's cococoya as well. It's not moss. So, you know, some plants really, you know, they don't mind the stability or the pole being made of cococoya or moss. This one seems to be doing fine on cococoya. And I just direct those aerials down into the pot. Directing the aerials into the pot, I like to do this because those roots can now convert into soil roots, and this now means there's more surface area just by having more roots for the plant to absorb more nutrients. And this allows it to mature faster, size up faster, and just, you know, the efficiency in which it acquires nutrients has just, you know, blown up, and the plant shows this. My variegated micans, however, is a new acquisition for me, so I'm still learning about this plant, and I have chosen to extend its pool. Well, it's currently on a moss pool, and I wanted to play it safe and use moss at first until I fully understand the plant, and then I could use, you know, a cheaper option, which is the cococoya, to continue. But micans in general has been a hard grow for me. It is quite pest prone, and I think it's quite fickle when it comes to watering. So I didn't want to mix matters. I opted for a moss plank. These are available at Utopia. And what I'm going to do is extend this pool. Now, I've waited too long to do the extension. Again, Plant Chores just caught up with me, and this one is now paying the price. So I'm going to extend it and show you how. This method of pool extension or plank extension, in my case, is a lot more time consuming. And because the plant has already kind of overgrown itself, I'm trying to just dislodge the roots that have already started growing into the moss. And while this shows the effectiveness of moss, like the plant takes no time to root into this, it loves moss. You know, for fickle plants, I will opt for using moss until I really, you know, understand the nature of it better. But, you know, why change what works from the onset, especially with variegates and a difficult plant like the variegated micans, which has been difficult for me. So the extension involves using these zip ties, and a good friend of mine recommended, you know, not just zipping it through one loop, but multiple loops of the plank or pole. So that's what I've been doing, and you know, this helps to secure the plank a lot better, especially as this is in quite a small pot. So this is the kind of height that we're playing with. It's about 4 feet tall, and Uh, another quick tip to stabilize my planks or poles, I use a stake to the back, and I secure the plank to the stake itself so that it can be more stabilized when it's in such a small pot. And I use Velcro tie strips to do that. Next, what I'm going to try to do is, because these roots have been growing out so nicely, I want to actually embed them into the moss of the plank. So I'm going to create a crevice to bury these into the pole. Now remember, the pole acts as an extension of the pot, so I want to really ensure that it is acting that way. So I'm pretty much planting the microns into the pole here. So just like this, I'm just going to put that in there. And my plan for this mycons is, because it's a new acquisition, I'm going to let it trail or grow up the second bowl. And I don't know if you've noticed already, but the variegation is, well, I think it's reverting. So once the variegation doesn't come back, I'm going to chop and prop this and start it all over again. with the hope of the variegation coming back. Here's another quick tip. Sometimes I lodge stones just to give the plank a little more stability, just like that. So cheers to an extension. Okay, so living next to my mycons is my varicosum that I don't know has completely come back and shocked the living daylights out of me. But the setup that it's in is quite odd. It's in leca and water primarily. Those roots are still growing in water, and this also has a moss plank and is loving it. So I'm just not going to change this wonky setup for now because the varicosum seems to love it. And we're going to move on to watering. This one lives in water that's halfway filled in the vessel, or at least one third way up. So that's this setup. Before we continue with the watering, I just want to show you all my Florida goose for my last plant chores video. I added a cococoya pole to it and it put out two new leaves and has attached to that pole. So, in essence, I kind of want to point out that some plants don't mind cococoya, some don't mind moss. And the only way to find out what works is from trial and error, so I encourage you all to experiment. Here we're moving on to watering my newly potted plants using Great White. That helps to prevent trauma and just, gets the plant cozy pretty much in its new pot. So I'm going to water thoroughly until water actually comes out the bottom. Now, in this case with my syngonium, this was heavily watered by the rains already, so I'm not going to overwater that or water until the water comes out the bottom, like I stated. But these two clones, I'm going to water all the way through, as well as my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. And if you all have been following me for a while, you know I swear by Great White and the greatness of it, to say the least. Comment below if you all have been enjoying these plant chores videos. I really love making them because they really motivate me to do my plant chores when, I watch a couple YouTube videos, it charges me up and I'm out the door to get my chores going. To end this video, I'm going to show you all where I place each of these. My syngonium actually receives direct morning sun from the hours of 7 to 9 a.m. So that's going to go right back where it was thriving. And what I want to show you all is the two clones that I just potted up on camera for y'all. I'm placing them in the garage actually because the one that I did a couple weeks ago just put out a new leaf. So that seems to be a sweet spot for it. So I just added those there. And my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma is going right back where it rooted initially, so hopefully that'll continue to grow for me as beautifully as the variegated one. So thank you guys for watching. I really hope you all are enjoying my plant chores videos. We're going to tackle this potting station in the next video. So thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.